it's really a biological leap, and I think that the impact of the internet in particular is as important as anything that's ever happened in our history as a species. One of the most significant things is obviously the development of language, the ability to pass on information from parent to child and learn things from your aunts and uncles, which cows and chickens still aren't really able to do, at least very well. And so the development of the internet, making all that information, all the data, and increasingly all that wisdom and knowledge available is as significant as that, as significant as the development of agriculture, the domestication of animals, or the division of labor, the printing press. I mean, pretty much anything we've ever done, and still truly underestimated. And I think that we've got the upper hand on cows and chickens pretty much forever now. But no one wants to hear me philosophize, so I'll talk about Flickr and show off my awesome effect. Not enough applause for that one. Here's a very short professional entrepreneurial timeline of how we got there. In 1997, I was in grad school and decided I didn't want to do a PhD. I wanted to go work on the web because that's what all my friends who were actually making any money were doing. Came back to Vancouver, worked at a place which ended up being a complete disaster called Communicate.com, and left in February of 2000. So I thought I was walking away from like $10 million in options because this is just before the crash. It's actually awesome timing. I got bought out for $32,000, which was $32,000 more than anyone else made who stuck around. And started a web design competition called the 5K, where the premise was you design the best possible web page you can in 5 kilobytes of data. And anyone who was a web designer or developer back then probably heard about that contest and made a huge amount of waves. And at the same time, convinced or helped convince a friend of mine who was a developer at Communicate.com to leave and turn his hobby website, GradFinder, into an actual business, and started that up. And 6 months later, it was acquired. Went back to consulting work, and in 2002 started a company called Ludicorp. And the purpose of Ludicorp was to create this web-based, massively multiplayer game called Game Never Ending. And in 2002, if you're an entrepreneur here trying to pitch and raise money, this is an awesome time compared to 2002. We had the dot-com crash, which was obviously very significant if you're trying to raise money for consumer-facing internet stuff, but also 9/11 and WorldCom and Enron, and it was just very, very difficult, and certainly for something as non-enterprise software sounding as a web-based massive multiplayer game, not an easy time. And in fact, by the end of 2003, we were basically out of money. The only person who got paid on the team was the one who had kids. And we cast around for something else we could do with the technology we had developed for making the game. And that was Flickr. So started that up. It was taking the real-time communication stuff we'd done for the game so people could instant message and have group-based chat, and in the context of the game, manipulate items in the game world. And we replaced the items in the game world with photographs, and we had this really cool-looking product where you could drag a photo into an IM window, and it would pop up real-time on someone's screen, and you could do real-time annotations with them. So if that doesn't sound anything like Flickr, you're right. It was technically very cool, and as a product, totally retarded, because the chances that someone that you cared about would be on the other end were nil. I mean, we were starting from 0 users, and AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, MSN Messenger had, even at that time, tens and tens of millions. So we evolved it pretty quickly, and were lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time and make enough of the right decisions that it actually started taking off. And like they said, just about a year after we launched it, it was acquired by Yahoo. So Flickr today, here's some stats that I got just recently. So bigger than when I left last year. 80 million monthly unique visitors. And some of the ones that actually blow my mind, the 45,000 photos served each second. So like every second, 45,000 photos served. Because I remember getting to the point where we served 100 photos a second, and what a pain in the ass that was. And going to the colo at 3 in the morning and having my contact lenses all dried out because of the air conditioning, and adding servers as fast as we could. So it's big. And it's big, like I said, right place, right time. for some of the reasons I'm about to talk about. One is the general evolution of consumer media technologies. So on the left there is the Kodak Brownie camera, probably the first consumer camera. And on the right, I can tell you I made this slide a while ago. It's the Nokia N95, today's hottest phone. When the Brownie came out, photography was about memory preservation. So people took photos at significant life events, wedding, graduation, birth of a new baby, maybe a vacation that they wanted to remember. And that started to change in the early part of this decade, still this decade. People started using photography as a way of communicating and connecting with people. So taking the camera phone shot of the baggage claim to show that you've arrived safely, things like that. And so here's some examples of people using photography that way from Flickr. Taking the photo, actually in the upper right is a nephew of mine, and his mom would take photos several times a day. So even though I didn't see them face to face, I got a sense of what he was doing. You know, put the recycling bucket on his head and little stuff. So a way of keeping in touch, communicating, and feeling connected. But also things, you know, as mundane as today's gas prices, or the crazy event you saw on the way to work, or the beautiful, funny, sexy, interesting little moments of everyday life that people use to communicate. So, Flickr's vision. We had a joke in the office that Flickr was about sunsets and babies and kittens and flowers, because those seem to be the main groupings under which photos that people upload on the internet fall into. But we actually had to develop a vision statement when we became part of a big company. I'd never done that before, and of course kind of thought, oh, this is going to be a waste of time. But what we came up with actually did help drive the evolution of the product, and that was Eyes of the World. So how's the audio? People can hear me all right? Good, okay. In a past life, I was a Grateful Dead fan, so some people will recognize that title. But to be this kind of the focal, the point of exchange for what people see, and reflect that back out to the world at large. And that worked really well. So this is a photo from 2006. This is the protests in Paris following the, I think it's CGP legislation. It was French government mandated that you should pay back your student loans, please. And so there was fire bombings and protests in Paris. And the photos that people on Flickr produced were just as good as the stuff coming off AP and Reuters and Agency France Presse. Slightly more recently, this past April, the G20 protests in London. Again, the photographs that were coming off Flickr were picked up by international media just as good as any of the wire services. And some really fantastic photographs got shared there.